this Trump's triangle of death. What is Donald Trump's triangle of death? Well, Trump has promised America three things. Number one, he's promised to keep the dollar strong. Number two, protect Main Street, which is the you and I, the people who don't necessarily know anything about Wall Street or Bitcoin or Dogecoin or bullish and bearish trends. He's promised number three to rebuild factories. Uh, uh, these are three corners, but there's a problem. According to the economic math, America may not be able to keep all three promises alive. And you have to understand something. America made a trade-off between owning factories in after World War II to becoming this big kind of credit society, much like the United Kingdom has done. We're in our 250th year of America. Now, if America doesn't shift back to factory reset, and I mean literally go back to factories, go back to manufacturing, go back to fracking its own oil, then we're going to see countries like China, who are industrializing at a large scale, become the next superpowers of the world. So it's really important, the things that President Trump is saying. The question is, can he keep his promises? Now, according to the economic math, America may not be able to keep all three promises alive at the same time. Why? A strong dollar makes foreign goods cheaper, which is good. You want foreign goods to be cheaper. This is why we can benefit right now in America from importing our clothes from China. Some people make their T-shirts in China, their textiles in China. You can buy a car now twice as fast as Tesla Cybertruck from China at a percentage of the cost. AI goods are cheaper in China, but the payoff is cost of education goes up. Things that you can't import from China tends to go up. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. So a strong dollar makes foreign goods cheaper, but it also can make American factories less competitive. Tariffs can protect American factories, but they can make life more expensive for ordinary families. Tariffs is just a fancy word for imposing income taxes or income taxes on products going into a country. And protecting ordinary families with cheap imported goods may mean the factories never come back. Three promises, three corners, and this is what Trump is promising. In case you don't necessarily see what I'm saying, he's promising this.
As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right? It's going to come back. It's going to come roaring back. It's all going to come roaring back. We're going to put tariffs on outside countries and outside people that really mean us harm. They want to, well, they mean us harm, but they basically want to make their country good. Look at what others do.
So these are three promises, but only two of them can actually survive. I call this Trump's triangle of death. Now, I'm not saying Trump is going to die or be killed or assassinated, to calm down. I'm not talking about the death of a person. I'm talking about the death of a promise. One of these economic promises may or will have to be weakened, sacrificed, or allowed to die to see the other two come alive. So the real question is not, does Trump want a strong dollar? It's not, does Trump want to protect ordinary Americans? Neither is it, does Trump want the factories to return? Of course, he and hopefully we all want all three. The question is, which one is his administration eventually going to sacrifice? Because one of them in this triangle has to be sacrificed. And then when you understand this, you'll understand why China is paying so much attention right now, why China's buying gold, why central banks are buying gold, why the United States is suddenly talking like Alexander Hamilton again. And by the way, we are talking about Hamilton economics. Why John Maynard Keynes believed the world needed a neutral international monetary system, and why economists and former world financial leaders have suggested gold could become an international reference point. You'll begin to see why this triangle matters. Welcome to Propheducation. It's where we don't just tell you what may happen, is we're not prognosticators of a doomsday future. We tell you exactly what to do. We do the difficult work so that you understand why it may happen. I'm going to explain every financial phrase. I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to assume, if you stick with me to the end of this, and please, everybody, hit the share button. Come on. 240 is way too small. Let's get this up. Let's get this engine going, because it's not every day you get to benefit from revelation and education at the same time, which is what Propheducation is all about. So hit the share button, hit the like button. Willful ignorance is no longer going to be the excuse of tomorrow. It's the future hangs in the balance of those who are hungry enough to get the knowledge necessary to build it. So I'm going to explain every financial phrase. I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to assume you know nothing, not because any of you are unintelligent rather, but because people in finance have discovered that if they use enough complicated words, everybody else becomes too embarrassed to ask questions. And that is how they keep you outside the room. But today, you and I are going to enter the room. Today, we are pulling up the chair. Today, we're going to understand the language. If you're ready for me to make this plain, I need you to type in the chat, show me the triangle. Come on, type it right now. Show me the triangle. Before we get into it, I want to welcome all now, by the way, 430,000 subscribers to this channel. 430,000 people. At this point, we're no longer a YouTube channel. We're a small country. We need a flag, a national anthem. We need a central bank. And judging by today's message, we may also need some gold. To the new subscribers, welcome. You've entered a channel where 1 minute we are discussing scripture, the next minute we're discussing the Chinese central bank, and somewhere in the middle, I may tell you about a dream involving a snake, a president, and an airport. But don't worry, it all makes sense eventually. And to the more than 300 new members who have joined seat at the table, thank you for trusting me and welcome. You're not merely a subscriber, you've gone beyond that. You're the people who saw the free food outside and said, now take me to the private dining room. You looked at the public content and said, this is good. But where are they hiding the dangerous information? The filet mignon. Welcome to the table. Your chair has been prepared. Your plate is now clean. And your cutlery is in the correct order. Please do not embarrass us by taking home the centerpiece. And for those of you who have not yet joined seats at the table, I love you deeply. You are family. You're simply standing outside the restaurant looking through the window, and we can see you and you can see us. There's still room at the table. All right, let's get into this. What is the triangle? Here are the three corners again. Corner one is keep the dollar strong. If you're taking notes, please write this down. Corner two is protect Main Street. Main Street being the opposite of Wall Street. It's you and I who own restaurants and shops. Number three, rebuild the factories. Let us define every phrase, because some people hear strong dollar and think that must be good. Some people hear Main Street and imagine a literal street. Some people hear rebuild the factories and think this is simply about reopening old buildings, and it's much, much deeper than that. Let's begin with the dollar. What does a strong dollar mean? When we say the dollar is strong, we mean the dollar can buy a large amount of foreign currency and foreign goods. I want to make this easy. Imagine one American dollar can buy 10 units of another country's currency. A television made in that country costs 100 units. If $1 buys 10 units, that television costs an American $10. Now imagine the dollar becomes weaker. I hope you understand. Just say understood if you catch that. Now imagine the dollar becomes weaker. $1 can now buy only 5 units. The same television still costs 100 foreign units, but now the American must pay $20. Nothing changed about the television. Nothing changed about the factory. What changed was the power of the dollar. So a strong dollar allows Americans to buy foreign goods more cheaply. That sounds wonderful. And for the consumer, it often is. A strong dollar can make imported televisions, phones, clothing, furniture, cars, machinery, and foreign holidays more affordable. If you're an American traveling to another country and the dollar is strong, your money goes further. You walk into a hotel like a king. You order room service in the Philippines. You say, "Bring me another towel." You do not even need another towel. You just want to feel super powerful. That is the strong dollar. But the same strong dollar that helps the American consumer hurts the American factory. Why? Because American products become more expensive for foreigners. Imagine an American machine costs $1,000. A foreign buyer must exchange their currency into dollars to purchase it. If the dollar is too strong, they need more of their own money to buy that American machine. Meanwhile, the American business buying foreign machinery may find the foreign product relatively cheap. If you understand, just say, "I get it. I get it. I get it." So the strong dollar creates a seesaw. When the dollar rises, the American shopper may gain, but the American factory will lose. Let me say that again. When the dollar rises, the American shopper will gain, but the American factory will lose. Now type that in the chat for me. The shopper gains, the factory strains. That is corner number one. I see all of you in the chat. I get it. I get it. I get it. Okay. Now, what is Main Street? Let's move on. Main Street is a political and economic expression. It's fancy speak for ordinary people, workers, families, small businesses, people who pay rent, people who buy groceries, people who need a car, people who are trying to buy a home, people who feel every price increase. Now, Wall Street is the world of banks, large investors, financial institutions, the big guys, the giants, stock markets, asset managers, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, powerful corporations who can afford their name being on the front door of a huge skyscraper. Main Street is the person standing at the supermarket asking, "Why is this smaller but more expensive?" Main Street is the mother, like you, watching right now, looking at the grocery receipt, wondering what's going on. Main Street, rather, is the father, wondering whether he can still afford the family insurance. Main Street is the small business owner discovering that every part he imports has become more expensive. Main Street is where economic policy becomes personal. Washington announces policy, Main Street receives the receipt. I hope you're catching what I'm saying right now. And that is the line you need to remember. Wall Street announces the policy, you and I on Main Street receive the receipt. Now, why am I making this so simple? Because it's not enough for the church to do a Bible study. We have to now move into what I call a Babel study. Now, what is a Babel study? It's where Daniel understood the language of the Chaldeans. The language of Wall Street is what gets you off of Main Street. And my goal is to push as many of you off of Main Street onto Wall Street without any of your neighbors knowing you left Main Street. How does that sound? Politicians can speak about tariffs, trade deficits, industrial policy, reserve currencies, but eventually somebody walks into Walmart and pays the receipt. Eventually, somebody fills their car with fuel. Somebody buys building materials. Eventually, somebody pays the electrical bill. That is Main Street. Protecting Main Street means trying to protect ordinary people from high inflation, unemployment, unaffordable goods, expensive energy, failing wages, economic instability, AI. Now type Main Street gets the receipt. I hope you're catching that. If you're taking notes, Main Street gets the receipt. All right. What does rebuilding factories mean? The third part of this triangle. And Trump says he wants to bring the factories back. He's not simply talking about putting old workers back into old buildings or young 15-year-olds back into the coal mines. A factory is much more than a building. It's the machines, engineers, electricians, designers, suppliers, roads, railways, ports, energy, raw materials, technical knowledge, skilled workers, and generations of experience. Things men used to do. And sadly, in America, manhood seems to be under great attack. When a country loses a factory, it loses an entire ecosystem. It loses the people who know how to operate the machines. It loses the nearby companies that make parts. And it doesn't just lose that, it exports it to other countries like China. It loses the colleges that train the workers. It loses the suppliers. It loses the culture of production. And what happens to its people is they get fat, develop diabetes, and eventually die. And that's why bringing factories back is not as simple as saying, factory, come home. You cannot stand at the airport with a sign saying, welcome back, manufacturing. Factories need an ecosystem. Now, why does this matter? Because national power is not measured only by how much money a country has. Look at England, a country that used to be known for manufacturing, traded off its manufacturing to China, lost its status as a superpower, and now is a credit country that simply, like some parts of America, sells credit and insurance. National power is not measured only by how much money a country has. It's measured by what a country can make. Can the country make medicine, weapons, computer chips, transformers, batteries, fuel, ships? Can it feed itself? Ask yourself, can your 16-year-old child change the water of the car? Can they change the carburetor? Do they know when the exhaust pipe is gone out? Can it produce the machinery required to make more machinery? If an apocalypse was to happen today, would your kids survive? A nation can be rich on paper and poor in capacity. Now, what is capacity? Capacity means the practical ability to do something. Imagine two countries. Country A has $1 trillion in the bank, but it cannot make antibiotics. Country B has less money, but its people can produce food, medicine, steel, fuel, machines, and military equipment. Cue China. During peace, country A looks richer, but during war, country B is stronger. Because you cannot swallow a stock certificate when you need medicine. You cannot fuel a jet with a financial derivative. You cannot defend a nation with a share buyback. Money is powerful, but money is not production. Money can organize capacity, but it cannot replace capacity. This is why the factories absolutely matter, and this is why Trump is panicking desperately to close this triangle. Now let's put the triangle together. America wants a strong dollar, protected consumers. But if you protect consumers and rebuild factories, you can't do both at the same time. We've just established that because each corner puts pressure on another corner. In other words, if you protect the consumer, you lose the factory. If you protect the factory, the cost of goods goes up on the consumer, and then the Americans vote their president out of the window. Each corner puts pressure on another corner. Let's examine the three possibilities as combinations. Option 1, strong dollar and protect Main Street. America keeps the dollar very strong. That makes foreign goods cheap. Consumers enjoy lower prices on imported products. Main Street is protected from some price increase. But what happens to the factories? American made products remain comparatively expensive. Foreign goods continue to enter the country cheaply, and companies continue asking, why should we manufacture this in America when we can make it somewhere else for less? The factories do not return at the scale promised. In this combination, the dollar lives. Main Street, you and I are happy. We're living affordable lives. But reindustrialization dies. Now, reindustrialization simply means rebuilding the country's industrial and manufacturing capacity. Type in the chat, strong dollar, cheap imports, weak factories. Now let's explore option 2. And please follow Miami Ooh and like, share, and subscribe. Because especially if you think this is necessary information and it's helping you. If not, don't share, don't subscribe. Option 2, protect Main Street and rebuild factories. America decides we're bringing back the factories, but it also wants to avoid crushing families with huge price increases. One way to help American factories compete is to allow the dollar to weaken. Why would a weaker dollar help? Because foreign goods become more expensive for Americans. American goods become more affordable for foreign buyers. American exporters become more competitive. Domestic manufacturing becomes more attractive. But the sacrifice is the strength of the dollar. Imported products may cost more. Foreign travel may cost more. The dollar may purchase less abroad. And in this combination, Trump's party is out. Main Street is supported through jobs and industrial growth. Factories return, but the exceptionally strong dollar is sacrificed. Option 3, strong dollar and rebuild the factories. America decides we are keeping the dollar strong and we are also rebuilding our factories. How can American factories compete when foreign goods remain cheap? The government may use tariffs, subsidies, imported restrictions, government contracts, tax incentives, and industrial policies. These tools can protect domestic factories, but they may raise prices for Main Street. Why? Because a tariff imposed by America upon a foreign import simply means that company will impose that charge upon the consumer by raising the costs of the goods. The dollar remains strong, factories return, but affordability may die. This is the triangle. And here is why I call it the triangle of death. Can you see it now? Because whichever two corners you protect, the third comes under pressure. Protect the dollar and Main Street. The factories struggle. Protect Main Street and the factories. The dollar may weaken. Protect the dollar and the factories. Main Street may pay more. Type in the chat, you can only choose two. Now, I hope you all are understanding where we are so far. Before we continue, I want to take this moment to just take a breather and bring you in on what 300 of you have been brought in on. And that's what I call the 100K rule. Now, the 100K rule is simply the enemy's attack on anybody wanting to make $100,000. And when I say the enemy's attack, I mean literally the enemy's attack. I never understood why for so long the Bible talks about the good soil reaping 30, 60, and 100 times as much. 100 times is 100,000. The enemy fights 100,000. He hates that number, 100,000, because once you reach 100,000, you reach a rule called compound interest. It's the reason the rich get richer. And in my seat at the table, I actually teach people how to get that $100,000 and how your life changes after 100K. Take a look at this. We'll be right back. You know, people often ask me, how do I build Goshen? And if you just allow me a few seconds just to tell you, I realized that there's something called the 100K rule. And it's something somebody actually told me. Tomi, your life will change after you make $100,000. And I realized Satan, principalities, powers, everything was conspiring against me making that $100,000. And when I made it for the first time, listen, my life changed forever. It was like you go from $100,000 to $1 million easily. It just changes your life. And from there, it's not really about the money. It's about the opportunities that it creates to serve the kingdom of God, do all the crusades we're doing, conferences, meetings, and of course, take care of your family as well. And we're talking a lot about Goshen, but in my private membership class, I want to show you some of the 4 avenues to that 100,000 and how I got there. If it sounds like something you're interested in, being mentored by me, coached by me on how to maybe make some different decisions this year, then feel free to join my membership class, which will be a lot more than just about that. But that's the first video there. If not, God bless you. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, back to the video. God bless. Now, Welcome back. If that sounds like something you're interested in, the link's in the description. I hope it's also going to be pinned in the chat at some point as well. But it's all in the description. You can join the membership right now. All right, now, before an economist writes me a 10-page email, let me qualify this. Economies are complicated. Technology, productivity, energy production, tax changes, and innovation can improve all three areas. This is not a mathematical law saying improvement is impossible. The argument is that America cannot fully maximize all three at the same time without major trade offs. And economics, rather, is the study of trade offs. Every policy has a price. Every advantage creates pressure somewhere else. Every promise sends somebody a bill. Now, what's a tariff? A tariff is a tax placed on imported goods. Suppose a washing machine is made overseas. It costs $500 when it reaches America. The US government puts a 20% tariff on it. The 20% of $500 is $100. The, the washing machine now costs $600 before the shop adds another expense or any other expenses. So who pays the tariff? And this is where political language can become misleading. A foreign government does not normally walk into the US Treasury and hand over a bag of money. The American importer initially pays the tariff. The importer then increase the price for the customer. Ask the foreign manufacturer to lower its price, accepts a smaller profit, or divides the cost across all three. So, who ultimately pays? Sometimes the foreign company pays part of it. Sometimes the American business pays part of it. Sometimes the American consumer pays part of it. Usually, the burden is shared in some way. The purpose of the tariff is to make the foreign product less attractive and give the American producer room to compete. Think of a young tree. The government builds a fence around the tree so larger animals cannot destroy it before it grows. The tree is the new industry, the fence is the tariff. It sounds wise, but what happens if the tree never grows? What happens if the company becomes lazy because it knows foreign competition is being blocked? What happens if the company keeps raising prices because customers have literally nowhere else to go? Protection can build strength. Protection can also protect weaknesses. The question is, does the tariff help the industry become competitive, or does the tariff simply make the consumer pay more? Type in the chat who receives the protection and who receives the bill. Now, what's a subsidy? A subsidy is a government support given to reduce the cost of production or encourage an industry. It may come through tax credits, cheap loans, direct payments, free land, research grants, government contracts, discounted energy or infrastructure. Suppose building a computer chip factory costs $10 billion. The government says this factory is important for national security. If you build it here, we will contribute $2 billion. That's called a subsidy. A tariff makes the foreign product more expensive. A subsidy makes the domestic product cheaper to produce. Tariffs are the fence, subsidies are the fertilizer. The goal is to help the domestic industry grow. Now, nations have been playing this game for a long time, and we're going to talk about this. It's called Hamilton economics. If you're understanding what we're saying so far, just say, I got you, or put some emojis up, some deuces up, so that we're all on the same page. This brings us to the Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton was America's first Treasury Secretary. If you have a $10 bill, you likely recognize him as the man on the face of it. In 1971, America was a young nation. It had recently separated from Britain. Most Americans were farmers. America had very few factories. It depended heavily upon the same empire it had just fought for independence. And if you depend heavily on the same empire that you just fought for independence from, that makes you a mini colony. Right? It's what's happening in Africa right now, across Africa, our dependency on the West. America could declare itself politically free, but it still needed Britain for tools, weapons, clothing, machinery, and manufactured products. Hamilton understood that political independence without economic capacity makes independence an illusion, something I wish most of our African nations understood. His message was simple: a nation that cannot make what it needs is not fully independent. It may have a flag, a constitution, a national anthem, but an adversary controls everything required for its survival. Its freedom has limits. Hamilton proposed a system involving, yes, you guessed it, tariffs, subsidies, industrial development, strong national credit, and protection for young American industries. An infant industry is a new domestic industry that is not yet strong enough to compete with older foreign producers. You protect it while it grows. You support it. You train it. You fence it. You build the infrastructure around it. Eventually, it should become strong enough to compete. This system helped America develop from a primary agricultural country into literally an industrial superpower. It did it through something called cheating. Now, people sometimes say countries become rich through free trade. That is only part of the story. Many powerful countries become rich by cheating, using tariffs, subsidies, fencing and fertilizing, government support, technology acquisition, industrial policy, protected markets while they were developing. Then, after they became powerful, they told everybody else, now let's all be fair and let's all trade freely, which is pretty much what America did to become a superpower. It's what China's doing right now through greedy tactics, through espionage, through copying products corporately, corporate espionage. It's literally stealing other people's ideas, growing its economy, and then at the end it's going to say, now let's all be good boys and trade freely and fairly. It's like somebody climbing over the wall, reaching the top, and then pulling the ladder up. Then they look down and say, you people should learn to jump. That's why the original speaker jokingly said powerful countries cheat. I would use a more careful word. They strategically protect themselves. Then, after winning, they often preach openness to everybody else. Trump's economic team is openly returning to this Hamiltonian tradition. And now that's why you'll begin to understand this kind of speak.
As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
Does that make sense, right? The message is we're going back to cheating. I'm sorry. We're going back to strategically protecting our own interests. This message is national security begins with national capacity. America must be able to make things again. That's simply what he's saying. America cannot remain dependent on strategic rivals for everything, because otherwise it makes us simply a vassal state of those countries or a colony. And that is why rebuilding the factories is not a side issue. It is the premier economic agenda of the next 100 years of America's survival. If America is to get past the 250-year curse that most empires go through, it must mandatorily return to manufacturing. But who does that affect? Say it in the chat if you know the answer. And this gives us the first clue. If Trump must sacrifice one corner of the triangle, rebuilding the factories is probably not the corner he wants to abandon, because if the factories do not return, the entire Hamilton agenda fails. Now, why Main Street cannot be sacrificed easily? Main Street can't be sacrificed easily for this reason. Could Trump simply allow, for instance, prices to rise sharply in order to protect American factories? Politically, it's political suicide. Ordinary people do not experience economic policy through a speech. They experience it in their wallets. The family does not care that the tariff is strategically brilliant if the new washing machine costs $200 more. The small business owner doesn't care about a 30-year industrial plan that's going to make America great again if the imported parts needed this month have doubled in price. People vote based on how life feels now, not on how life is going to feel later. The politician may say, we are rebuilding national capacity. The citizen says, I can't afford eggs. Both statements are true, but the eggs may win the election. This means Main Street is also difficult to sacrifice. If Trump abandons Main Street, he may lose the political support required to continue rebuilding the factories. So the factories are central to the agenda. See how difficult this is now? Main Street is central to political survival. That leaves the third corner, the dollar. Now, is the dollar the corner they sacrifice? Now we arrive at the central theory of why we're all here. Are you excited? Are you rubbing your hands together? Some analysts believe that if America wants to rebuild factories and protect Main Street, the dollar may eventually have to be sacrificed. It may have to weaken, not collapse, not disappear, not become worthless tomorrow morning, but weaken enough to make American production more competitive. Now, the challenge is, how do you weaken the dollar without causing panic? How do you reduce its value without openly telling the world? We are reducing the value of your savings. How do you change the system without destroying confidence in the system? Because, of course, a weaker dollar means your savings are pretty much useless. The theory says another asset may become the escape valve. And this is why I'm trying to prime every believer to understand the wealth transfer we're in right now. And that asset is gold. Gold. Back to that metal again. That darn metal keeps resurfacing itself. It's becoming a problem. Why is gold a problem for the world? Because gold cannot be reprinted. You cannot quantitatively ease it, which means printing it. It simply is or it isn't. Now, what is an escape valve? Imagine a pressure cooker. Pressure builds inside. If the pressure has nowhere to go, the cooker can explode. The escape valve, that little bit at the top that releases pressure in a controlled way. Some analysts believe the global financial system is carrying enormous pressure from government debt, trade imbalances, currency overevaluation, geopolitical conflicts, sanctions, and distrust. Gold is the valve. Instead of openly announcing the dollar is worth less, gold rises sharply against the dollar. And then we cue Besson.
The treasurer has been to Fort Knox. I am happy to say all gold is present and accounted for. The U.S. has the largest pile of gold in the world, over $1 trillion at current market value.
You got to ask yourself, what is news? It's simply political theater. It's simply them saying, trust us. It's a dog whistle to the people that have ears to hear and eyes to see. They're saying, we're up to something. It doesn't matter if there's gold behind there. It just matters that you and I believe there is. If gold moves from $4,000 an ounce to $10,000 an ounce, two things may be happening. Gold may be becoming more valuable. The dollar may be becoming less valuable relative to gold, or both. A higher gold price can act like a mirror. It shows you what the currency has lost. Now, type in the chat, gold may become a mirror. Now, China enters this story marvelously because the question is, why is China right now buying so much gold? Gold is not an asset. Gold is a security. Gold is being deliberately undervalued right now by market makers. So why is China buying gold? Recently, a gold EFT became the largest EFT in China. EFT just sounds for electronic funds transfer. It literally means an exchange uh, is a an exchange is a marketplace. Traded means it can be bought and sold. A fund is a basket of investments. Imagine going to the supermarket. You can buy one apple, one orange, one banana, one mango, or you can buy a fruit basket containing all four. An EFT is the financial fruit basket. Some EFTs hold company stocks, some hold bonds, some hold property companies, some hold gold. America's one, the S&P 500, is a major scoreboard following around the 500 largest American companies. People can buy an EFT that follows that scoreboard. China has a major index called the CSI 300. Index is simply a group of companies that come into one, which follows around 300 large Chinese companies. But now one of China's largest investment baskets is connected to gold. A Chinese gold EFT grew larger than a major Chinese stock EFT. That does not mean every Chinese person owns gold. It doesn't mean all Chinese savings are in gold, but it is a powerful signal that China's hearing the dog whistle. Money is leaving one kind of confidence and is entering another. Investors are choosing between a basket representing Chinese companies and a basket representing gold. More money has gathered in gold. When money moves, confidence moves with it. Markets are not only measuring wealth, markets are measuring trust. Money moves with trust. Write that in the chat. A gold EFT allows people to gain exposure to gold without keeping bars in their house. Imagine a secure vault holding 1,000 gold bars. The fund divides the financial ownership of those bars into millions of shares. You buy some shares. You do not normally receive a gold bar in the mail. You own a financial interest connected to the gold held by the fund. Now, why do people use EFTs? Because physical gold creates questions. Where will you store it? How will you insure it? How will you know it's real? I don't know if anybody wants to have a vault of gold in their basement. How will you sell it quickly? What happens if it's stolen? The EFT makes buying and selling easier, also makes it more fraudulent. But there's a difference between owning physical gold and owning a financial claim connected to gold. Let me make this simple. Owning a bicycle, owning a receipt saying a bicycle is stored for you, having a contract to buy a bicycle next month, and betting on whether bicycle prices will rise, all four involve bicycles. They are not the same thing. The same is true in gold. Now, what's paper gold? Paper gold is an informal phrase. It can refer to a gold EFT, electronic funds transfer. It can refer to a gold certificate, gold futures, unallocated gold accounts, and leverage gold products. Not all paper gold is fake. Not all paper gold is fraud. A physically backed EFT may hold real gold in a vault, but the investor usually holds shares in a structure, not a coin in their hand. Now, what is leverage? Leverage means controlling more than the money you personally contributed. Suppose you have $100. Without leverage, you invest $100. With 10 to 1 leverage, your $100 may control a $1,000 position. If the investment rises by 10%, your gain may be huge compared with your original $100. But if it fails by 10%, your entire $100 may disappear. Leverage multiplies gain, leverage multiplies loss. It's like using a long metal bar to lift something heavy. The bar gives you power, but if it slips, it can crush you. Type in the chat, leverage multiplies both. Now, central banks are buying gold too. It's not just ordinary Chinese investors. China's central bank has also contributed to buying gold. What is essential is that if banks are doing it, like we said, Money's moving where trust moves. Now, what's a central bank? A central bank is the main financial authority behind countries' money and banking systems. America has the Federal Reserve. Britain has the Bank of England. China has the People's Bank of China. A central bank can influence interest rates, support the banking system, manage the currency, hold national reserves, create money, and respond to financial crisis. Think of ordinary banks as football teams. The central bank is part referee, part rule maker, part stadium manager, and part emergency doctor. China has been adding gold to its national reserves. Other central banks have also been buying gold. Why? Because countries need savings too. A family may keep cash, savings, a pension, property, food, and perhaps jewelry. A country also needs an emergency cupboard. Its reserve may include dollars, euros, government bonds, gold, and other assets. These reserves help the country pay for imports, support its currency, survive a crisis, reassure lenders, and keep trading. Why does gold matter? Because gold is not another country's promise. Now, what's a bond? A bond is an IOU. It's another country's promise. You lend money to a government or company. They promise to repay you, usually with interest. A U.S. Treasury is an IOU from the U.S. government. China sells enormous amounts of goods to America. China receives dollars. China can use those dollars to buy U.S. Treasury securities. In simple terms, China sends America real products. America sends China dollars. China then lends some of those dollars back to the American government. China receives an IOU saying, we will repay you. For many years, that has been considered safe. The US bonds have been considered the safest bonds in the world. But China may be asking, how much of our national savings should be promises from one foreign government? Imagine you sell food to your neighbor. Your neighbor gives you handwritten IOUs. After many years, almost all your savings are pieces of paper saying your neighbor owes you. Even when your neighbor has always paid, wisdom may say, let's also own land. Let's also own tools. Let us also own something that doesn't depend on these paper promises. Gold is not a government's debt. Gold is not a company's share. Gold does not need a bank to remain solvent. Gold does not need a chief executive. Gold does not go bankrupt. This is what people mean when they say physical gold has no counterparty risk. Counterparty risk is the person on the other side of a promise. If I owe you money, I am your counterparty. If I fail, you may not be paid. Gold does not promise to pay you. It simply exists. Now, gold is not risk-free. It can fall in price. It can be stolen, costs money to store. It pays no interest, produces no goods. It creates no earnings. The point is not that gold is perfect. The point is that gold fails differently. Gold is God's money. That's why he said, I'm the Lord. The silver is mine and the gold is mine. Gold holds nations accountable. Wisdom is not finding one asset that can never fail. Wisdom is refusing to allow one kind of failure to destroy everything. Now type diversify the failure. Now, what is de-dollarization? De-dollarization means reducing dependence on the US dollar. It does not necessarily mean abandoning the dollar completely. A country may de-dollarize by holding fewer dollars, or like China, buying more gold, trading in local currencies, creating alternative payment systems, borrowing in another country, or reducing dependence on America's banks. Imagine a business depends on one supplier for 95% of everything. The business adds 3 more suppliers. The original supplier may remain the largest, but the business is no longer completely dependent on one source. That is called de-dollarization. Not always abandonment, often diversification. Now, why are nations doing this? Because the dollar is not only money, it is also power. Statecraft means the methods a government uses to advance national interests. Military statecraft uses weapons, armies, alliances. Diplomatic statecraft uses treaties, embassies, and negotiations. Economic statecrafts use tariffs, sanctions, and banking restrictions. export controls, currency systems, subsidies, and financial access. Because so much of the world uses dollars, America has enormous influence. Imagine every business in town must cross one bridge to trade. You do not own every shop, but you have influence over the bridge. The dollar is part of the bridge. And that's why America can use sanctions so powerfully across the world. It can restrict access to what we call dollar banking, American financial markets, international payment systems, and assets held under American influence. Other nations watch this and think, what happens if one day we become the target? And that's the danger of President Trump, peace through strength policy. The overuse of sanctions causes other nations to say, how do we break free from the dollar bridge stronghold? The dollar bridge stronghold gives Trump literally a financial Strait of Hormuz in almost every nation in the world. This does not mean they hate the dollar. It means they want options, options of power. And what is a reserve currency? A reserve currency is a currency that governs a major institution that the institution holds widely. The dollar is the world's leading reserve currency. Countries use it to trade, to borrow, to save, price oil and other commodities, pay international debts, and manage emergencies. Imagine children from 10 schools trading cards. Everybody agrees to use one school's points because those points are recognized everywhere. That makes trade easier, but it gives the school issuing those points enormous influence. America receives major benefits from the dollar's global role. The world needs dollars. The world buys American government debt. America can borrow its own currency. American consumers can buy many imported products cheaply, but there's also a cost. The strong global demand for dollars can keep the dollar expensive. An expensive dollar can hurt American manufacturing. And that's the tension we're talking about. The same system that gives America financial power can weaken parts of America's industrial power. And this is where we're coming into. We're coming into the time where people are saying that the dollar is going back to gold. After the Second World War, an economist named John Maynard Keynes proposed an international currency called the Bancor. Not Bangor, Bancor. The Bancor was supposed to be used between nations to settle trade. It would not necessarily have been more money people carried in their wallets. It was designed to stop countries from building enormous permanent trade surpluses and deficits. Now, remember, we said a trade deficit means a country imports more than it exports. Imports come in, exports go out. Suppose America sells $800 billion of goods abroad, but buys $1 trillion from abroad. America has a $200 billion trade deficit. A trade surplus is the opposite. Suppose China exports $1.5 trillion of goods, but imports only $1 trillion. China has a $500 billion trade surplus. I hope you're understanding now. Keynes believed both sides should face pressure. Deficit countries should not be allowed to consume forever without adjustments. Surplus countries should not be allowed to accumulate forever without also changing. Now imagine two bathtubs, if you will. One constantly loses water, the other constantly overflows. Keynes wanted a plumbing system that pushed both tubs back toward balance. But the Bancor was rejected by guess who? America, because America would not benefit from that at the time. And now it wishes that it said so now. Well, Trump does. Instead, the world centered the system on the dollar. Why? Because America had won the economic game. America had the factories, the gold, the exports, the industrial power. In 1944, America occupied the position China occupies in many areas today. America was the great exporter. America did not want a system that punished countries for having huge surpluses. Now history has reversed some of those positions. China is the great industrial exporter, America is running large deficits, and America is questioning the rules of the system it once designed. History has a sense of humor. Now, where's the world going back to? The world is going back to an idea that we need to revise Maynard's idea. And this may be one of the most important conclusions of this entire episode. John Maynard Keynes proposed the Bancor because he believed the world needed a neutral system for balancing trade. Neutral means the system would not belong to America, it would not belong to Britain, it would not belong to China. No individual nation would be allowed to control the ruler by which everybody else was measured. But the Bancor was rejected. The world chose the dollar instead. Then came 2008 global financial crisis. What happened? Banks failed. Markets froze. Lehman Brothers collapsed, and the American Federal Reserve created extraordinary amounts of money to rescue the financial system. Now imagine you're China. You've spent decades making real products and selling them to the world. In return, you've accumulated trillions of dollars and dollar-denominated government bonds. Your national savings are heavily invested in promises from the United States. Then you watch the United States respond to a crisis by creating more dollars. China begins asking this question. If America can create more of the currency in which our savings are stored, what happens to the value of everything we have already earned? It's like working for 20 years and allowing your employer to pay you in special points. You save 1 million points, then one morning your employer announces, we have created another 10 million points. You still possess 1 million. Your points didn't disappear, but your share of the total system has become smaller. Your concern is not necessarily that the points have become completely worthless. Your concern is that somebody else controls how many points exist. And that gives you a reason to diversify. So in 2009, the government of the People's Bank of China reviewed the basic Keynesian concern. He argued that the world needed an international reserve currency disconnected from any individual nation. In simple language, China's saying the world's savings account should not be controlled by one country. I'm going to finish here because there's so much more to go through, but I'm going to pause here. I think we've said enough for today. I will continue this one next week. I want to challenge you for now. Consider, think about, pray about assets, liabilities, and securities. I am not saying gold is an asset. I'm not saying spend all your money and store gold bars in your house somewhere. It's not safe. It's not secure. What I am saying is the greatest wealth transfer is upon us. And many people will miss it because the language is deliberately designed to protect the rich from getting it and those who are willfully ignorant from accessing it. And frankly, the church has opted for the latter. My prayer is that we wake up to the language, we begin to take sharp notes, watch this again, share this again, and be a part of what's happening right now. The silver is God and the gold belongs to God. And guess what? As a child of God, it doesn't belong to China. It belongs to you first. And sometimes God will give the world the chore of heaping up the wealth. So in the end, he'll turn it over to you, the righteous. But I want to add something, not just the righteous intelligent. So I'm offering you all a seat at the table. Haven't yet taken that option. I know this was surprisingly long, probably the longest live I've ever done. But there's a lot I want to tell you in such limited amount of time. I believe we literally have to 2030 to get this right. And the curriculum of the church is still, turn around, touch the ground, and your blessing is coming in the mail kind of speak. I believe we've got to get geared now for what's coming and our minds in order. And so if you believe that, I'm offering you a seat at the table. What seat at the table? It's for those who want to break the 100K barrier. If you've already broken it, that's great. But this particular class we're dealing with right now, new classes are coming up and of course being uploaded, is how to break the 100K barrier. What's the 100K barrier? After you make $100,000 liquid, I'm not talking about asset, I'm talking about liquid cash, your future begins to look different. It's the reason the rich get richer. It's why God said good soil produce 30, 60, and 100-fold. Because once you reach 100-fold, you reach a realm called multiplication. Before that, you're fruitful, but after that, you begin to multiply. And so in that particular class, I offer you how to actually 4 ways to get to that 100K goal. And after that, you reach a place called compound interest, where money begins to make money, and of course be able to do several things for you. The next voice you'll hear is the announcer for that. The link for that is in the description. I hope it's also been pinned in the chat. But if you don't get access to it, fine, that's all good. But if you do, if you decide you just want to continue with the free stuff, great. But make sure you get my book, How the Mighty Fallen. It's now a bestseller on Amazon, by the way. So thank you to everybody who's purchased it. But thank you even more to those of you who are going to read it. It's not for the fallen, it's for those who want to be mighty. And my goal is to raise up all of you to be mighty men and women. The Bible says the least of you will be as David, and the greatest of you will be as the house of God. So next voice you'll hear is the announcer telling you how to be a part. All my links are in the description. But for now, you've been watching Propheducation. God bless you. You know, people often ask me, how do I build Goshen? And if you just allow me a few seconds just to tell you, I realized that there's something called the 100K rule. And it's something somebody actually told me. Tomi, your life will change after you make $100,000. And I realized Satan, principalities, powers, everything was conspiring against me making that $100,000. And when I made it for the first time, listen, my life changed forever. It was like you go from $100,000 to $1 million easily. It just changes your life. And from there, it's not really about the money. It's about the opportunities that it creates to serve the kingdom of God, do all the crusades we're doing, conferences, meetings, and of course, take care of your family as well. And we're talking a lot about Goshen, but in my private membership class, I want to show you some of the 4 avenues to that 100,000 and how I got there. If it sounds like something you're interested in, being mentored by me, coached by me on how to maybe make some different decisions this year, then feel free to join my membership class, which will be a lot more than just about that. But that's the first video there. If not, God bless you. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, back to the video. God bless.